even understand what Mr. means. No one calls me that.
Right, fantastic. Great, folks. Welcome. So what are we doing today? I think we're thinking, or we're not thinking, or we're telling people to think, or we're telling people not to think. I'm not too sure exactly which way this conversation is going to go. So hope you all got your thinking hats on, and let's see how we can delve into this topic. You know, when I was thinking about it overnight, I was also thinking about the concept of influence, and is it appropriate and is it right to influence other people? So, do we tell people what to think? Do we try and provide an environment and the resources and the tools to help them think, or do we simply try and influence them and get them to think the way we think? So that's my little thought for this morning as we kick this session off. So I'm going to actually go straight to Trevor this morning, and let's start with him. Seeing as you normally keep him till last, you might as well put him on the spot first up this morning.
Mr. Trevor.
Yeah, Mr. Trevor. Yeah. So the question is whether you think that's appropriate or not.
On that basis, I will come on board and talk. Until someone calls me Mr., I refuse to talk on this forum. Yeah. So listen, yesterday, I was also thinking about my comments yesterday, and I said yesterday, hey, the child in me, actually, my hair stood on end because I heard all these sort of instructions of what I must do and this, and I've got to follow that and this. And I thought, man, that was quite interesting. How many other people react like that when people say you must do? And the big finger comes out, and I think we've all been through this in the past. I think a lot of people do. Even though our politicians turn around and say, you know, we're a compliant society, and what they're actually telling us to do is be compliant, shut up and follow the rules. And as you all know, whenever anyone tells me to follow the rules, I do exactly, no, I don't. I do exactly the opposite. I try and work out why they're telling me to do this, why they're restraining me, what's the constraint, and then I try and apply my own common sense or all the other influences over life into whether I actually want to follow whatever they're suggesting or not. So I just want to put that in from yesterday, but I also then thought about something that I needed to say yesterday. And that is, it was almost as though kids don't really know their place on the planet. And I believe that kids are a hell of a lot smarter than any of us give credit for. And again, I'm looking through the eyes of an 11-year-old, and I'm watching her interact here during this lockdown period with all of her classmates. She's in grade 6, I believe it is. She will educate me on that one. But in the old days, this was at junior school. And I know that the way that they're interacting was the same way that we were interacting in matric. That's how advanced they are. And I'm suggesting that none of us as elders here give these kids credit for how they're actually working with the technology, the amount of information that they've got. And we've got to be very careful on what we prescribe to them. The other thing that I wanted to comment, I made a couple of notes just before we came down. That's unusual for me. I normally talk off the cuff, you see. And that is that these kids today are inspired on YouTube by other kids of anything between the ages of 11, 12 to around 22, 23, by $1 million kids on the internet. So you get the Justin Biebers of this world who actually get onto YouTube and they sing a song and they become famous kids. It seems like almost overnight, but the technology allows them to do that. So these kids are watching, and I watched a program because my little one asked me to watch with her, of some youngsters on YouTube who are out investigating haunted mansions. And at that haunted mansion, they got 63 million views. And these kids are driving around in fantastic cars. And all they have to do is get $1 per month out of 1 million views, and they've got it made. So these kids need to be teaching us how to actually use this technology. So I want to sit back, and the other point that I actually want to get into is I believe we should start thinking about what is this hierarchy thing, and where do we fit? And I have this analogy of a totem pole of life. So obviously I was watching something out of the United States with India, red Indian totem poles and all that sort of thing. And the question that I ask people is, where do you believe you sit on the totem pole of life? Is this life all about status and hierarchy? And do you bow respectfully to the Queen, the President, or anyone who tells you, call me Mr., otherwise I'm not interested? The totem pole of life and where you are and how you fit, I actually think frames how you actually work in society. I'm going to leave that there.
Thanks, Trevor. So let's get across to Mr. Mpolelo and see what he has to say on that little intro.
Yeah, no, I say Mrs. Ndlovu is online as well. So yeah, since everybody has been a Mr. this morning. But anyway, look, I was thinking about this as well yesterday, and this is where my thoughts are. I think both have a role to play. There's a role to play in making certain prescriptions for any person and for young people. But there's also a role to play for giving room for people to express themselves in how they're gifted and in what their purpose is in life. And I think leaning to one extreme end or the other, for me, does cause problems. That's why, for me, wisdom becomes important. In actual fact, wisdom is one of my values in our home. So we've got 4 values, and wisdom is one of them. And for me, wisdom says knowing when to use or to lean on either extremes depending on a situation, and being able to accurately understand that for now we need prescriptive application of things. For now, we need to give room for people to express themselves. I'm going to take it down into a small analogy, and I'm hoping it's going to probably try and simplify what I'm trying to say. On the road, some are driving BMWs, some are driving Toyota, some are driving Golfs, different cars, expensive, not expensive, and people drive colors they feel express who they are and so forth. But we all have a white lane to drive in. Because if there's no white lane and everybody drives wherever they want to drive, then just like taxis, we shout at them, you get what I'm saying? So there's a room for prescribing certain things at certain times. There's a room for giving expression. And wisdom says knowing when to use at a particular time in the right measure. And for me, that's what it came down to. As far as I can explain when you prescribe, again, this is my own understanding, is that when it comes to behavior and how you live with other human beings, I think it's great to prescribe. It's great for me to say to my children, you need to value other people. And that's me telling them what to do. But I can say to them, in valuing those people, you can express yourself in a particular way. You get what I'm saying? I think, let me keep it there. I could go on for this for quite a long time, but I started having a problem that if you lean for the side of just expressing yourself, what you may end up having people whose only thoughts in life are just about themselves, because they know only expressing themselves and nothing else. But prescripts helps a person to learn how to live with others at the same time expressing them freely. Again, the analogy of having lines on the road so that we all run in a lane, but we express ourselves using the different cars that we drive and the colors that we drive them in. I'll keep it there for now. There's a lot I could say around that.
Great, thanks, Mpolelo. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's the swing between anarchy and dictatorship, isn't it? I mean, it's if you don't have any rules and regulations, then what happens? And if you have too many, then what happens? So and the real question, I suppose, is who actually who actually has the right moral compass to actually be putting those boundaries in place. So yeah, some good thoughts there. Thanks for that. Right, Jasper, let's get across to you.
I must say I enjoy the wisdom of Mpumelelo. So well done there. And I think the key word is here balance, but at the same time, I'm not going to offer solutions. I'm almost just going to try to unpack the challenge that we face a bit more. That the reality is we are a diverse people with 7-8 billion people, even in the same household, can act totally different even if we come from exactly the same parents and exactly the same circumstances. So there's a big creator has designed it like that. So it's not for us now to interfere and now make everybody read off the same page in the same book. So if I just think of how the creator has structured society, then there would be broadly 3 categories. There would be the young child growing up and being prepared. There would be the adult executing that for which he was prepared and having the necessary skills, make the necessary adjustments as life throws him curveballs and changes. And during that time, while he executes, he's then also supposed to pass on what he has learned. And then you have the eldership. And eldership would be the people who now has got enough experience under the belt and they have the luxury of analyzing what have they learned and then be there to give further direction. I think our challenge in society is that we don't have these 3 stages structuring these 3 stages functioning correctly. So you have fatherless homes where there are no parental guidance and they get guided by gogos. And you have gogos who their frame of reference goes 40 years ago. They're not in touch with the current reality. And then you have the other reality that technology has now moved on so fast that the age groups that Trevor have described are actually being guided and influenced by the youngsters. But the youngsters can only do it from their, call it privileged, most of those youngsters haven't come out of hardship. They had the luxury of technology and then making up their minds to travel and do things. They haven't yet faced a few challenges in their life. So for me, the challenge lies in there that we are all influencers, whether we like it or not. Even that alcoholic father is an influencer. And for the one child, that's the trigger that says, I never want to be like my father. And for another child, it's the trigger that says, so what can I expect to become else but an alcoholic? So the mystery for me is in the minds of people. But where I come from is to say, if we don't at least hold up, I call it a, what's a word I used yesterday? The one word is role model, but almost an absolute truth. You know, if you want to build a building and you're not 100% accurate as to where, you know, where is 90 degrees for this building, and you build that building on 80 degrees or 30 degrees, it's going to collapse. So what is that absolute truth? So obviously then for me and Christians, it's easy to say, all right, the word or the Bible is our absolute truth. But even there, you would interpret the same word different from the way I would interpret the word. And there's already flexibility that I have to trust my inner guide or my spirit that explains to me what that word means for me, not for the next person. And I think my challenge in society is that right now we have a thing like socialism or communism that has permeated the minds of a narrow group of people in charge of our careers and our lives. And that's always for me danger. But I believe that life will sort itself out if we give power back to the families and in time expose those and understand that our role with children is to prepare them as best as we can from our perspective of where we see life is going, and then constantly have places like this chat room and other places where we can either discuss or role model different things, and then start having a place also for eldership, because I think that has got lost, where we value the wisdom of elders with their networks, and elders must understand their role is no longer to execute, their role is to advise, and to pass on knowledge, and help do the things in society. Yeah, so I think that is where I want to stop today.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Some great points there as well. So, Susilo, let's come across to you.
Sorry, just give me a minute. I'm just on WhatsApp here. Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, Kevin, let's get across to you then.
Okay. Morning, everyone. Yes, I'll start with just agreeing with what Trevor said about the youngsters are much more smart cookies than people often give them credit for. I mean, I've got a young granddaughter that's not 3 yet, and the things she does and knows how to do, the sky's the limit. And that should be encouraged. The kids need to learn from their mistakes and be able to learn by doing things. There's too much in the society these days generally that are restricting them, and the health and safety in inverted commas comes into it, and the nanny state comes into it. So they need to be able to do that. Yes, there has to be a bit of balance. You've got to have some rules in there. You can't have people being allowed to murder others. At extreme example, yes, you've got to have some rules in there, but people have got to be allowed to express their intelligence and then be encouraged to do so. And just one slight analogy from over here. I don't know if it's the same in South Africa. When we were kids, we used to play conkers. There's no risk. You might get hit on the wrist, perhaps, if you're not careful. But we play conkers for hours. And then these days, you can't play conkers in schools. They banned it for health and safety, or unless you wear goggles. Some places you can play conkers as long as you wear goggles. Work that one out. The state interferes too much. Yes, let's encourage the younger generation, but with the caveat that yes, there have to be certain guidelines in certain parts of life. But anything, but to stop them being a sheep, if you like, is the way I would call it. I don't like to see people being sheep and following the herd. Let them express themselves.
Right, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I think the point that you make there for me is so pertinent. If you stifle individualism too much, then you lose all creativity. Therefore, you're going to lose all progress and development within a society. And so finding that balance is really a key element in many ways, I think. Nozipho, good morning to you. Let's come across to you.
Good morning. I'm not sure if I've grasped yet. Mpumelelo, you laugh. But I think I'm guided by. I was not here yesterday, and I'm going to be guided by what we had said on Monday, that we'd be talking about what we had to pass on to the next generation. And I want to. Firstly, I think one of the issues with children for me is that they are, they have minds of their own. And I often ask myself if I am preparing my son for the future, or if I'm preparing him based on the current, on what I was prepared for. And I want to go back, I think it was Jasper that spoke about how gogos are not in touch with the world or the future. Like, we sit on the same breath. Jasper, I want to also bring in the fact that we've got a, if you want to call it a gogos parliament, if you want to call it that, who have to make policies for the future, for the children of the future, and yet they're not in touch with what's going on in the future. I mean, you sit here and you hear everybody talk about this 4IR and 4IR this and 4IR that, and when you go into it, what the children are experiencing out there is totally different to what is there. And you sit and think we probably need to have younger generations are able to say, this is where we go. When it what Trevor said is that at some stage we need to understand children have a mind of their own and they know what they're heading on to. You know, my son likes business, he's a business guy. Like, you know, I've never taught him this. I think it was just him watching probably me and his father. He's too business minded. And one of the things he does is drop shipping. And one of his issues in the drop shipping is how it's very easy for him to send money overseas. But if money must come into the country, into his accounts, when he gets the people to buy what he's selling, he's like, Mom, I have to go through like 5 different channels to be able to get the money. And all those channels keep taking everything out of the money. And I sit and I think, and these the things that our ministers of communication should be, you know, helping our children with, because we keep saying it's a globalized world, the world is open, and the world's not really open. You know, it depends where you are in the world for you to view that world as open or not. A child, for example, that's sitting in the UK is having a totally different 4IR experience to a child that is sitting in South Africa. And so in terms of what we need to pass forward to our children, I think it becomes important for them to know as well that this world that we're preparing them for, we also don't know about it. Like none of us have been to 4IR, none of us know what we're preparing them for. And the question is, you know, we keep wanting to do things the old way. We keep wanting to go back to things as they used to be, but things are no longer that. You know, we keep taking children through the entire 12-year schooling process and, you know, through saying, go sit at university for 4 years and study for a degree, which by the time you come out of university might even be relevant, especially in the IT world, you know. And these are certain issues that, you know, the children we're growing now are not the children that are going to sit and be employed at an organization for 3 years, for 4 years, for 5 years. That's not what this generation is about. This generation is about gigs. It's a gig generation. They want to have a gig. They want to sit in a week and be doing jobs for like 5 different companies. That's where we are. I don't even think we know. I don't know myself what I should be preparing this child for, except to say, be your own person. Don't rely on the government. Make sure that you are creating a way for yourself and help wherever you can and collaborate. So I have no idea.
Thanks, Nazipa. I think you have a very good idea, because I think you hit the nail on the head there. You know, it's you know, the statement has been made, you know, quite a few times in the recent past that, you know, the education that we are providing for our children now needs to be preparing them for jobs that don't exist today. And unfortunately, most of the education that we have today is preparing people for jobs that are probably also won't exist in the future, but they do exist now and they're going to disappear. So what are we preparing them for? We're preparing them for things that aren't going to be there. And we're not preparing them for things that are potentially going to be there. So it's a real challenge in looking at the way we're bringing up our kids and the way we're providing them with the resources and the information to help them think and develop into those environments. And I think that's exactly, so I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly the point of this discussion. And so great, thanks for that. Guy, let's get across to you.
The silver fox. I suppose I'm going to, in my 60-second chat or so, make a few statements. Quite interesting. I spoke with a principal of a high school, and he said we have boys in men's bodies. And this is a principal who's been around the block for many, many years, has been a teacher back in the day in the 80s, 90s, and now is a principal in the 20s. And it was quite interesting having a discussion with him on that. I think if we had to break it down into a few sort of sections, the kids today, when it comes to technology, yeah, they're very sharp, and no one can dispute that. You know, I have a 26-year-old, 27-year-old daughter-in-law, and she helps me with all my technology stuff. So that to me is a given, because the youngsters are more geared towards that. What's very interesting, though, is that when I've met youngsters last year through my son, etc., I wouldn't give them any advice, and I'd sit there with a beer or around the swimming pool, and they'd come up and chat to me and say, Silver Fox, give me some wisdom. And I'd say, okay, well, what do you want some advice on? Because I won't go and give youngsters any advice or any input unless they ask for it. Because unless they ask, they're not really going to tune in and think. So let me just shoot off at a tangent. A lot of the youngsters today suffer from FOMO, and they want to be empowered, but they don't realize that with empowerment comes responsibility. Okay? And they think they are happy by having fun. Now, fun to me is short-lived. It's something you have fun in the evening, and happiness becomes deep down inside. So I would just say to these youngsters when I chat to them, I just have every single one of them, I say, look, I have a TDBH model. And they say, what the hell is that? And I say, it's a thinking, discipline, behavior, and habits model. And it's however you want to apply that. But you go away and you think about your thinking, think about the person you're talking to, how they're thinking, look at their discipline, look at your discipline, then look at your behaviors and look at your habits. Inherently as humans, we know what's right and wrong. So I said, if you just follow that simple principle and look at what you can control, then you can go and be what you want and who you want. I said, you know, time is very precious. I said, don't kid yourself because you're 22 or 23. 10 years are going to come along and you're going to be 32 and you're going to look back and say, well, shit, where am I? And the other thing I say to them is, and it depends on one's belief system and where you come from, but I say to them, I just look at what I can control. I haven't read a local newspaper in South Africa, or any newspaper for that matter of fact, for 17 years. And I haven't watched the local news media for 12 years. I watched it for 2 weeks when the C-19 came out, and that just put me in a different place, and I didn't enjoy that. So I just say to the youngsters, look, you're going to teach us a lot about technology. But when it comes to the other things in life, see, a lot of youngsters can't handle failure today because they watch on TV all these success kids. And they think that's the life. And they think they can just have it like that. And they don't have to work. There's not many Mark Zuckerbergs around there. You know what I mean? Versus the population. So at the end of the day, that's my take on it. So thank you.
Right, thanks, Sky. Right, Susilo, I see you running around the house and doing all sorts of multitasking and other things. Do you want to have a quick word?
Yes, I try to not tell the youth of today anything, except for the basic principles, like we said, to be kind and respectful in the way that you talk to other people and whatever. Because it is what a lot of you have said is very, very interesting about technology and what they learn from technology. I've got a 6-year and an 8-year-old grandchildren. My 6-year-old granddaughter speaks perfect American English, well, since she was 4, from the Nickelodeon channel that she is allowed to watch on a weekend. And she can tell you anything about princesses and anything about whatever, all the stuff that she learns from the internet. And then my grandson, he can tell you anything about fishing because he's interested in fishing. So he's always watching anything to do with fishing channels and how to do everything about fishes. So they are the experts that they've learned all from the internet. And then they also, someone was talking about, Trevor, I think you were talking about the channel that they watch, but people are doing things, inventing new things. It is absolutely fascinating. So I try to tell them, not to tell them things, except for don't watch too much TV and too much internet. But it's making them clever children. But I think if you have a child today, and luckily my children are big, you've got to try and what you think is wise for them, and what is happening in the world, you've got to try and balance that so that you can have familial values, so that the values that they have is not just from what they see on the internet, but you have strong Christian-based values in your home, so that they can know that's how we do things here, and how other people do things out in the world are possibly different, but that's not some of the things that we want to do. And just interesting about jobs, Nasipo, you were saying about jobs. My daughter-in-law, they live in the UK. She's just moved to the UK to my son, and she just told me. Well, they told us last night she's starting a job this week with as an au pair, and she's earning more money as an au pair than what Ruben is earning as a big IT guy, just looking after other people's a 10-month-old child and a 3-year-old child, just doing that. So she is going to install, I guess, new values into them, because their parents are both lawyers, and they never at home, they never there to teach their children anything. So at least so we hope that our children can instill in the new generation something that's good and respectful, and that based. That's it.
Great, thanks, Susilo, and thanks everyone. Yeah, I think some great points made this morning going around. And Zipa, I'm impressed. You've got Trevor up to 4. Normally he doesn't go past 3, so that's quite a. and rule 3 refers you back to rule 1 anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. So yeah, that's great. So, but I think some real quality thoughts and input this morning. So I really appreciate that, everybody. And the question is, where to tomorrow? So Trevor, yeah, maybe you've got some thoughts on that.
Well, I'd love for us to think about this thing of status, because I think it fits very much into the current discussion of Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. Why does the Queen matter? Why does the President matter? Why does Mr. Nell matter? So this totem pole of life, if there are almost 8 billion people in the world, and we had to turn around and say, there's someone right at the top and there's someone right at the bottom. Are you one of those two people, or are you somewhere in between? Where do you feel you fit, or is it an accurate analogy?
Great. Okay, super. Well, we'll get into that tomorrow. Fantastic day further, everybody. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the morning. Go well. Cheers now.